Okay, I think we will go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. On Sunday, March 22nd, we will again celebrate World Water Day. My name is Stephanie Chang, and I serve as the state senator for Senate District 3. And I am pleased to be joined today by Sylvia Orduño from the People's Water Board Coalition, Jasmine Carson from Wayne Metro Community Action Agency, Mayor Daniel Mahoney from the City of Jackson, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Merritt from the Salvation Army, and my colleagues in the Senate, Rosemary Bayer and John DeMoose. And also want to give a shout out to Representative Tanya Myers Phillips for joining us as well. Every human being needs water to live, yet across our state, more and more Michiganders are struggling to pay the bills. We are seeing water rates rising in many communities, rural, urban, and suburban. And the data is clear. More than 290,000 Michigan households would benefit from a statewide water affordability program, and the numbers are likely even greater now. In the state legislature, over the past few years, we have appropriated funding to try and support water affordability and assistance programs, but the need is increasing. Last year, we introduced Senate Bills 248 to 256, a bipartisan package of bills to make sure that all Michiganders have access to water bills that they can afford. These bills will create a first in the nation statewide water affordability program here with several flexible options for local governments to choose from. And the need for this legislation is growing. More Michiganders are struggling to make ends meet. Affordability for basic things like water and electricity, groceries, and rent are among the foremost concerns for many of our residents. And as we all know, water is the most basic human necessity. So today I'm joined by community leaders and experts on World Water Day to highlight the need for urgent action on water affordability for Michiganders. We are also here to emphasize the importance of water affordability or assistance funding in the state budget. And you will hear about how, with rates rising and more people struggling, the need for assistance with water bills, as seen in the number of applications for various programs, is quickly outpacing the funds allocated. But simply appropriating funds each fiscal year to ensure that those who have fallen behind still have access to water is a band-aid. It's not a long-term fix. Our bipartisan water affordability plan, which you can read more about at mymiwaterplan.com, is a lasting, sustainable, comprehensive solution. It provides the lowest income households with water bills that they can afford. It keeps funding in the regional communities paying into the fund, and it provides water providers with more stability and certainty to plan for their infrastructure improvement needs. Many of you know that this package of bills has been years in the making. Last year, after months and months of work group meetings and consultation with colleagues in both chambers on both sides of the aisle, along with stakeholders around the state, we made several key changes and secured bipartisan support in both chambers. So, here next to talk about water affordability as both a statewide and bipartisan issue is one of my great partners on this bill package, my friend and colleague, Senator John DeMoose.
Thank you, Senator Chang, and thank you for your hard work on this, that you've literally poured years of your life into this, and I hope we can make it a reality this year. My name is John DeMoose, and I have the honor of serving as a state senator for the 37th District, which includes Northwest Lower Michigan and the eastern part of the Upper Peninsula. Access to clean water is not a partisan issue. It's a fundamental human need. And I just want to make one comment that every state in the union has certain advantages and certain disadvantages. Right now, the weather in Florida, for instance, is beautiful with sunshine, and I'm sitting next to snowbanks that are taller than my car. But one advantage we have in Michigan is access to water and the thought that someone in our state has trouble securing that access because of the cost is really unconscionable. Our goal is to ensure that we achieve water affordability, though, in a sustainable and equitable way. Because this issue affects families in urban, suburban, and rural communities alike in every corner of Michigan, our legislation addresses these challenges head on, protecting public health, all while providing greater certainty for our local water utilities and for water infrastructure to help stabilize their rising costs. I want to stress the time and effort that has gone into this legislation and how it has changed shape along the way. In the end, we came up with a structure that works for communities in my district in northern Michigan and in the Upper Peninsula, but it also works for uh, in Senator Chang's district, made up of parts of Detroit, Hamtramck, Warren, and Hazel Park. And it works in Senator Bear's district in suburban Oakland County. We can ensure access to clean, affordable water for every Michigander with the common sense legislation before the Michigan legislature today. And we will do it in a way that's very similar to the way Michigan handles its Michigan Energy Assistance Program, known as MEAP, which was created during a Republican trifecta and has since been supported on a bipartisan basis. Because we often hear so often about affordability and the high increasing utility costs, it's important that we begin to think about water alongside electricity and gas. I've chosen to become involved in this bill package because I've heard the stories of my residents who've had their water shut off and the changes that they've had to make in their daily lives as a result. I've worked closely with Senator Chang to make the bills something that can appeal even in northern Michigan. And it's one of the things that has made this package great. I initially brought up several concerns to Senator Chang, and now, as opposed to just disregarding them, she had extensive meetings throughout my district with people in Sault Ste. Marie and other places to make this something that can work around the state. So, with World Water Day coming up, I hope that we can prioritize ensuring that every Michigan resident has access to one of our most important natural resources. Here to talk a little bit more about the impact of unaffordable water on families and to lift up the need to continue our work for both assistance dollars and this overall program is Sylvia Orduno for the People's Water Board Coalition.
Thanks very much, Senator Demus, and your leadership on this has been tremendous, and we're so grateful to have you on board and working on this very important issue. I am Sylvia Orduno. I'm director of the People's Water Board Coalition. We're about 36 grassroots, faith-based, environmental, and social justice organizations working across the state. We've been doing so for about 3 decades now, trying to bring attention to the important issue of water affordability and the struggles that many households are having. For any family that's ever experienced the terrible problem of water insecurity, we know that it means having to make choices that no family should ever have to make. But unfortunately, it does mean that there have been many instances across the state, probably too many that we'd ever really want to know about, where households have had to make choices on what they can cook or how many times they can flush the toilet because they've had to figure out how to ration water, or if you have already had your water shut off, what you do in those cases when you have to figure out how you can come up with enough money to be able to pay those water bills to get your water service turned back on. And in those cases, having to rely on bottled water just for basic necessities like brushing your teeth or giving your children a bath, it's nothing that anyone ever should have to make a choice to do. So we're very much in need of getting this legislation passed. It's in our view very much overdue. We're so glad that it's not being seen as a partisan issue because it really isn't. And we're so blessed to have the water that we do here in the Great Lakes, but it also comes with an enormous responsibility. And so we're trying to make sure that we're connecting what it is that matters to many Michiganders about this resource that we have, but also making sure that we're connecting it to how we tie in the need for water across the world. And so World Water Day gives us opportunity to be able to make those connections and talk with other people in other places about the importance of water and making sure that all human beings have it for their need. It's also, I think, important for us to note that the situation with water unaffordability is a problem not only for households, but also for local water providers. It's really the only way that our local water providers get revenue is when they charge their customers. But if they turn off water or if they have customers that can't afford to pay, it's a problem for both the local water departments and households. And so we want to make sure that we're having that conversation in both regards because we need to make sure that we're getting some kind of parity with the energy sector, as Senator Demus was noting. And so we're very much hopeful that the legislation is going to be able to get passed. We've got excellent sponsors. We're looking forward to also having these conversations in the House, and we're very glad to be able to keep promoting this very important issue. I'm going to pass it next to Jasmine Carson, who is with the Wayne Metro Community Action Agency. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. And good morning, everyone. My name is Jasmine Carson. I'm the Executive Director here at Wayne Metro Community Action Agency. As a community action agency, our mission has always been simple: to eliminate poverty. Every day, we work to ensure that families in our communities have access to the basic necessities they need to live with dignity. In Wayne County, access to water has become the number one request for assistance. Over the past year alone, Wayne Metro has received more than 40,000 inquiries related to water support, and that number alone speaks volumes. Water is not a luxury, it is a basic human need. It is essential for health, for safety, and for the well-being of our children and our families. Yet, as costs continue to rise, water, like many other necessities, have become increasingly unaffordable. The demand for water bill assistance reached unprecedented levels this year. So much, in fact, that we were forced to close our application earlier than ever before. That decision wasn't made lightly either. It meant that countless families were left without support, facing the very real possibility of losing access to something fundamental to daily life. No family should have to choose between paying water and meeting other essential needs. That is why the passage of this water affordability legislation is so critical. These appropriations are not just about short-term relief, they are about long-term sustainability. They are about ensuring that we have the resources to meet the ongoing and growing needs of our communities. At a time when inflation continues to put pressure on household budgets, it's more important than ever that we take action. Investing in water affordability is an investment in public health, in economic stability, and in the future of our communities. Because when we talk about providing a safe and healthy environment for our children, it starts with something as fundamental as access to clean and affordable water. Our communities deserve this, and our families deserve this. Thank you all, and I'm now going to turn it over to Jackson Mayor Daniel Mahoney.
Thank you, Jasmine. Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel J. Mahoney, Mayor of the City of Jackson. I want to start just by saying thank you to Senator Chang, Senator DeMoose, and Senator Bear, and everyone on this call for your leadership on water affordability. I want to be clear about something. Nobody wants to raise water rates, not me, not our council, and not our residents. However, leadership means facing reality and not avoiding it. The reality in Jackson is much like many other cities in Michigan. We are dealing with aging water infrastructure, rising operational costs and treatment costs, and decades of underinvestment into our water system. Our water systems are essential. They are not optional, and they are not political. Delaying action, it will lead to system failures and higher long-term cost and greater risk to our public health for all of our citizens. So the decision in Jackson to increase water rates was not about a choice. It was about responsibility. And while the system does need investment, our people are stretched thin. In Jackson, almost 25% of our population are living in poverty right now. And so many residents are struggling. Families have to choose between paying a water bill and buying groceries. Seniors are living on fixed incomes, and working class residents are doing everything right, but they are still falling behind. And that's a reality that is just not acceptable. And we can't ignore that. This is the reason why these bills are so important. These bills recognize that water is a necessity, just like Jasmine just said, it's not a luxury. Um, these bills will create long-term water affordability programs, provide support for communities like Jackson who have infrastructure burdens, and also ensure access to clean water regardless of income. So this is about fairness, this is about equity, this is about aligning policy with real world conditions. In Jackson, we understand both sides of this issue. We must maintain financially sustainable systems, but we also must protect the residents from unaffordable costs. The city took responsible local action, but now it's time for us to have some support because local governments cannot do this alone. And so this resolution calls for state partnership and some shared responsibility in this issue, because no city should have to choose between safe infrastructure and water affordability, and no resident should have to lose access to water because of their income. And so the next person that you'll hear from this morning is from Lieutenant Colonel Steve Merritt from the Salvation Army. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everyone, for this press conference this morning. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Steve Merritt. I'm the Divisional Commander for the Great Lakes Division As already been said this morning, it's ironic. Here we are, Michigan, the Great Lakes state, surrounded by water, but we're talking about getting water to those most needy residents across the state of Michigan in our communities. I thank everyone. I want to especially congratulate Senator Chang, Senators DeMoose and Bear for their work, bringing this forward, important, making a difference in people's lives. The Salvation Army's mission is simple but vital to meet human needs in His name without discrimination. Every day, our officers, our staff of the Salvation Army work to keep the lights on, homes warm, and water running across our wonderful state of Michigan. I'm honored to be part of this press conference today, recognizing again World Water Day, a moment that calls attention to something we see every day in our work, providing access to safe, affordable water that's essential to the well-being and dignity of all the families that we serve. We see firsthand how water insecurity threatens the health and stability of our Michigan families. The Salvation Army we serve every county across the state of Michigan. We have 61 physical sites where people enter every day with needs upon them. And the Salvation Army, again, wants to line up and be a part of helping those families that come to us specifically with the water. Water isn't optional. It's essential, as we've all said, for cooking, for cleaning, sanitation, for caring for children and aging parents as we continue this fight today. Salvation Army regularly assists families with water shutoffs. And while emergency help is important, it cannot fully solve the problem of long-term affordability that our households face. Salvation Army has long partnered with local utilities, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, organizations like the United Way to deliver emergency energy and water assistance to family in needs. On this World Water Day, we are reminded that access is not something our families should live without. So with making choices today, I give our full support, the Salvation Army, to these bills to make water accessible and affordable to our residents in need across the state of Michigan. It's my honor to introduce Senator Rosemary Bear from the 13th Senate District of Michigan, and as she comes to speak this morning. Thank you.
Lieutenant Colonel Merritt, appreciate you. And I really want to start by, again, thanking the amazing and most dedicated team ever working on this project for so long. Also, thank you who have joined us today to learn more about this important life-saving legislative package. You've heard quite a bit now about this legislation and how critical it is for so many people in Michigan. You've heard how water is becoming increasingly more unaffordable, how more people simply cannot afford their water bill and are seeking help, which is often just not available. Clean, fresh water is vital to our health, our communities, and our economy. Right now, not everyone who needs help getting that clean water can get it. Water providers, local agencies, and the state help. They do what they can, but you've already heard stories where we just ran out. We just ran out. We can only do what we have. We can only spend what's available. We are not meeting the need. Contaminated water causes fatal illnesses, specifically diarrhea, which is a leading cause of death in children under 5. Something that common is fatal to children. Access to safe water significantly reduces the transmission of waterborne diseases like hepatitis A and typhoid. Heavy metals, chemical runoff, pathogens, and other pollutants can bring lasting damage to critical organs, including our brains. Clean drinking water is essential for hydration and detoxification. Reliable clean water improves health and reduces medical costs, particularly for seniors. Seniors account for the largest portion of our medical costs. So therefore, it's critical that we ensure that we all have access to one of the most important health needs that there is, clean, fresh water. Our seniors are finding themselves in a place where they simply do not have the income needed for basic necessities. Social Security just doesn't pay the bill, including the water bill. Nearly 25% That means nearly 500,000 Michigan seniors are eligible for help in this water affordability program. Because this issue is a public health crisis, our state has been allocating millions of dollars to try to ensure the provision of clean water for our people every year. We need to enact this legislation so that we don't continue to have an unpredictable, ever increasing need for emergency funds, spending tens of millions of dollars inefficiently, making the process even more complex for providers and agencies around the state. Unfortunately, again, this year we must allocate those tens of millions of dollars yet again, going into the fiscal year 26-27 budget that we're working on now to save the health and sometimes lives of people all over our state. This proposed set of bills would give us a clean, practical, more efficient, and targeted way to solve this huge problem and to save lives. Thank you. I'll turn this back over to Senator Chang.
Well, thank you so much, Senator Bayer, and thank you to every single speaker who shared some really important facts and stories and details about the crisis that we are in. Really grateful for everyone's time today. To the members of the media, are there any questions? Nick, Ryan, CBS, anyone have a question for us? Okay, I see Mary Ellen has a question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Senator. Um, I just want to ask, what can we do to support and push forward this legislation to passing?
I think that it's really important for folks to continue to advocate to their lawmakers, to continue to talk about how important it is that we pass the legislation as well as that we fund um, water affordability in this budget. And really also to keep sharing stories because we know that many of the stories that have been shared have been really impactful on a number of our colleagues. So I'm grateful for your continued advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Nick over at Gongware. I guess my question would be, do you know approximately how much this might end up costing, in appropriations, to fund something like this? And do you know possibly, approximately how much it would be in terms of potential new staff, implementation of the program administration, just any general stuff like that?
So, in years past, and others feel free to chime in, what the ask has been for the state budget around water affordability has been $60 million. And one of the things that we know is that it's important that we appropriate money now. But we also at the same time need to pass the legislation because the legislation includes the long-term structure and it includes a funding mechanism. And it'll take a couple of years to get all of those things up and running. So we need to do both of those things urgently, both fund water affordability in the state budget and pass the legislation. And then in a few years, we will then be able to have the actual funding coming through the mechanism that's in the bill. So others, I don't know, Senator Bayer, do you want to add anything?
Oh, you have it exactly right. It's a battle every year because it is not programmatic. That makes it harder for working on the budget. The number changes. There's always pressure from different directions. It just makes everything harder. And all of the agencies have to strive to find the money to get as much as they need. And then can they get more when they run out? Maybe not. Maybe we don't have any more that year. It's unpredictable. It is the worst possible way to deal with something that is this large and significant.
Senator, if I may add, it's also really important for us to look at what's been going on with the water sector against the energy sector. And we've got a lot of water customers, residential in particular, and our local water providers that are having to figure this out for themselves and haven't been able to do so. It's not it's something that can be successful to stand up these kind of programs on their own at the local level. There's a lot of administrative burden, and the dollars just aren't there for them to be able to sustain such. We were fortunate to have some funding come through the federal government during the pandemic, but those monies are all gone, as we know. And what we need, though, is for our legislators to look more closely at what's been going on with the energy sector and all of the funding that they provide to be able to assist energy customers with their water, light, propane, uh, other kinds of heating bills. And see it all the kinds of funding that are going towards that assistance. We need some kind of parity for water, especially when the water providers are doing this all very much on their own, as I noted, and we don't have the same kind of appropriations available for them, or even the federal funding that's coming down to help with federal energy assistance.
Thank you. Really important points. Any other questions?
I think I had kind of another follow-up. I guess I was kind of curious, maybe from a legislative perspective, what's been the primary obstacle, to being able to get some buy-in and maybe get some momentum for this to move forward? Has it been political? Has it been anything about, developing a plan like this and having something ready to be able to begin implementing? What's been the obstacles?
Well, I think like any big issue where, you're creating a new thing and it includes a funding mechanism, there's a lot of awareness that we need to raise with our colleagues. And so we spent a lot of time over the past year doing that in both chambers. And what we're seeing is that more and more lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are very much aware that this is a problem, and recognize that this is a solution that we need. And so I'm feeling very optimistic about the fact that we are growing support in both chambers to be able to move this issue forward. And we had a really excellent committee hearing last fall. The bills were voted out of committee with bipartisan support in the Senate. And so we're really eager to keep this momentum going and keep things moving forward. And World Water Day is a perfect time to remind folks of just how urgent this issue is. Other questions? Okay. Well, thank you everyone again so much for joining us. Thank you especially to our wonderful speakers. Everyone have a great weekend and happy World Water Day. Take care.